Welcome to Read This Author's Corner. I am your host, Alice Maria, and I am so excited to have back with me today author Clarence Haynes to discuss his new book, The Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery. Welcome, Clarence. Welcome, Clarence. I am so excited to have you back on Read This. And now you have a solo project. But before we jump into all the wonderful things, your new wonderful project, would you mind just sharing with the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump right into the book?
Absolutely. Alice, it's so good to see you. I'm so sorry that I've been so busy that we haven't been able to connect more frequently, but it's a pleasure to be back on the show. Hey, everyone. My name is Clarence A. Haynes. I am the author of The Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery, which you can see behind me. It's my solo debut novel about a high-powered New York publicist who has a secret mystical past. And the story also goes into her mysterious connection to a psychic who runs a botanica in the South Bronx, who's having all sorts of relationship issues. And he comes with a warning that pissed off ghosts are about to invade our human world. So that's the basic setup of the story. As the story unfurls, we begin to learn about who they are, what their connection is about. Slight spoiler, the main character's birth name is not Gwendolyn Montgomery. And so we begin to learn about who she really is. This is my solo debut novel, but I have co-written a young adult Afrofuturist series with actor-producer Omar Epps called Nubia, The Awakening and the Reckoning. And I have also written a short history book for middle graders in high schools called The Legacy of Jim Crow, which looked at the history of discriminatory laws in the United States. And before all of that, and I continue to do my other job. I'm also an editor. I worked for many years as both an in-house editor, and then I transitioned into freelancing. So I've worked with different publishing houses, different authors on their projects. So I'm a publishing person through and through.
Yes, you are. You really, really, truly are a publishing person through and through. And the book was very intriguing and bringing the characters together. Not going to give away too much, but okay, I'm going to back up a little bit and say, why were you inspired to write this particular story? Because I'm attracted to this story because I'm attracted to stories about culture and different information about different our cultures that we don't get to see, or if we get to see it, it's through a very skewed lens. So what caused you to want to write this particular story?
I wanted a number of things. I wanted to do a story that would be an homage to first in my home city. I'm a native New Yorker, and I'm a first generation native New Yorker. My family immigrated to the United States from Panama. And so I wanted to do something that would pay tribute to the culture I was brought up in, as, you know, I guess one could say immigrant culture, but then also just New York from a certain time, that, you know, wanting to capture everything from the sights, the sounds, style, way of speaking, real world history. Just wanted to do that sort of fusion. I just feel like the New York that I know, which was it was rough and edgy, but also very creative. And I always tell people that New York was really shaped by immigrants, the children of immigrants, people of the Great Migration, Black folks, and the children of the Great Migration. And so that was just a mix that was just like, wow. And so I really just wanted to capture that as much as I could, just because I think that New York is increasingly, I'm noticing, less centered in the real world, and I'm not okay with that. So that's the thing. And then the other big thing is, making the main character this powerful, glamorous Black woman. I wanted to pay tribute to powerful, glamorous Black women that I have worked with, grew up with, that I would just see out and about and in the city. I wanted to do this mystical adventure that would center y'all. So,
well, it's really all of that. And having lived in Brooklyn and New York City, what I really enjoyed about the book was it felt very authentically the vibe. Sometimes you read something and it's like so over the top, or people over exaggerate the feeling that although it's somewhat accurate, they try to do too much. And then it's like, okay, that's a bit much, but it just I felt like I was on the streets of Brooklyn. I felt like I was on the streets of the Bronx. I felt like I was in Harlem. It felt authentically New York. So you did New York proud. You did New York proud.
Thank you. I tried my best. One of my my marketing manager has said, "Oh, New York is like its own character." Right. In the book, and I really try to put as much of the city in there as I could without it sort of bogging down the narrative. And exactly what you said, I've read those sometimes, the scene experience stories where it's like, this is a little cheesy. And I tried my best to be like, no, don't let it be too much. There's certainly, for instance, there's certainly references to crime and violence, which I, as someone who came from the Bronx, was born and raised in the Bronx during a certain time, was certainly reality. But I just didn't want that to be the end all and be all. Like I wanted to incorporate that sort of thing into the story, but I just think there's so much richness, other types of richness to explore, that's what I wanted to emphasize. So
yeah, and it's not even so much about the crime in the over exaggeration. Sometimes it's in the way people speak or the way people act. It just feels like, okay, yeah, but you're Jim Carreying it, right. You're Jim Carreying it. Yeah, it's just a little bit over the top, and you did not do that.
Oh, thank you.
And that I really genuinely enjoyed, because it just felt like it flowed. And as you say about New York being its own character, but it's almost its own character visually. To me, it's like the character's skin. So it's not like, okay, they could be talking to someone from someplace else and they would still be New York.
Yes, that's so perfectly said, Alice. And then, I think one of the things that I love about sort of the New York I grew up with was you would have New York as your skin, and that's like your unified thing for so many people. But then what's so interesting is different people, depending on who you are, what you're going to express within that skin, because there's so many things you can do with it. You express, you parlay it differently. And that's what I want to do with so many of the different characters. Like you can sense like their New Yorkness, but then the choices they make with their sensibilities, their language, there are differences. There are sometimes subtle differences or sometimes stark, very clear differences. So.
Yeah. And that was very, very prevalent in kind of reading the book. It's not a monolith,
Yes.
And you were able to pull that out. And I do love, I sense the characters were going to pyramid together, but it was still very, come to that point of connecting. But when it happened, it was still like, oh, I saw it, but I didn't see it. You know, you know.
I'm going to tell you, some early readers, my publisher has been on. I can't really look at reviews anymore because my publisher is like, stop looking at reviews. They're like, don't do it. We're not happy. But some early readers, what's been interesting is there are quite a few people I think were like, I wasn't sure where this was going. For a minute, it was like, where's he go? What? And then there's a point that was like, oh,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, that's
It's
why
like,
you did this,
then it's
and
like,
that's why you did it. Yeah, because you're speaking of. So to clarify for your audience, the two main characters. The book is told between it has two POVs, Gwendolyn Montgomery's and Fonzie Harewood. And so the book is told from their contrasting POVs, and eventually their lives merge and intersect. But at first, they're not connecting. They're in their own they're on their own path journey.
right.
And so I think for a lot of people, and I put clues to hint at what's going to come. But for a lot of people at first is like, and the clues are subtle. A lot like, where's this going? And then once you hit it around, you're like, oh. So it's been interesting as well. Like, I don't know if there's like a thing about like earning readers' trust or are readers at a place where, I don't know, have they read a lot of things that just randomly, present information or present a storyline that doesn't go anywhere. Because I think my assumption was like, well, I'm sure they must know I'm going to. There's a point for all of this. But it's been interesting. Quite a few people were like, I wasn't sure. I almost was like, what is this worth my? And then once they get to that convergence, they're like, oh.
I've read enough to know that it's got to connect, right? We're not going down these two separate paths for no reason. But when I did get to the connection, I had to re-listen because I was like, wait a minute, he's having the same experience that she had. Like, oh. So I love when a story could like wake up that extra, it's not this predictable, like, okay, yeah, A plus 1 equals 2. We didn't really go there. It was like 1 and do. Like, oh, there's the plus. The plus didn't come as another 1. The plus came as a quarter, a half, a quarter. Yep. And so then by the time you get to where you saw it as the full 1, then it's like, I like this. I like this.
What once again, well said, Alice, and I wanted to. So a couple of things with that is that I'm a big characterization person, and so for me, it was really important to establish who the two main characters are before sort of getting more into the action of it all. Then also, I think what was happening, I've come to the realization that basically this is genre fusion. So there are, I think from the title and the cover, I think it's clear, there's going to be spooky horror elements, but it's also urban fantasy. Some people have said it's actually more urban fantasy than they were expecting. It's a bit romance. And then in terms of what you were saying about it's like 1 plus a quarter plus an 8 or whatever, it's a mystery thriller. It's it's kind of, there's a mystery that's happening here and it's not really clear how these two characters are connected and how they're going to deal with these ghosts that are about to invade our world for a minute. And so because it's all of these different things, I think then that impacts what elements come at a certain time. So I was recently New York's NPR station, WNYC, the program All of It. And the host, Alison Stewart, compared the book to Sinners, which made me so happy. And I was like, oh, thank you. And I think it was, obviously this is quite different in terms of its sensibilities. This is more contemporary and deals with New York and deals a lot with Afro-Latinidad in terms of my heritage, where Sinners is clearly 20th century based in the South. But what I think she was referring to is this concept of genre fusion, this concept of a narrative being a mix of sensibilities. With Sinners, it starts off really, you know, the vampires make a peak in the, you know, short appearance in the beginning, and you know something connected to horror is coming. But for the most part, it's really about the history, the characters and the history between the brothers and this, all these folks that they are connected to in terms of where they're from and the history with them, and then the musician trying to figure out what his life path is going to be. And then come the vampires in a big way.
I see what she was saying in regards to that, because it is a story, you know, it is about the characters, and it is not so much upfront about the horror of it. You know, you get those little tastes that, okay, this is going to escalate, right? It's going to escalate. But it doesn't start off in the escalation. You could really see that this could have another life. Like each of these characters can be like their own book, you know? So yes, it was truly enjoyable from the standpoint that it is a story that it has imagination. It has imagination. It's seen from, again, I've seen so much of the same things over many decades. So when you're able to see something different and have somebody take you on a different adventure and just really teach culture in a different way. Like I was actually born in Jamaica. So, you know, so all of these things that have been kind of blocked, like, oh, you can't talk about this, and many things are so taboo, right? So now to have people standing up and saying, oh no, I want to tell the stories of my culture, and I want to, you know, fuse all of this together, because I know and understand this does not mean I don't believe in something else. You know, all of these things make up the stew that is me.
It's very, very well. I completely agree. You know, the one thing I wanted to convey with the botanica that Fonzie runs is that it really is. I hinted at it. I didn't go deeply into it, but it really is a place where, regardless of what your religious beliefs are, it can serve as a haven for you. Because I just believe that one really doesn't have to make a choice, that whatever your path is to getting higher, I don't think it has to be a either or. I think it can be an and. So there is a Christian character, Miss Johnson, who she's
right. I was going to say that.
And she knew that her husband was still lingering around as a ghost. And she was like, I need to come to you for some help. And that she's not giving up her Christian beliefs, even though Fonzie is more in the world of traditional West African beliefs and deals with Orishas and yada, yada. And I just felt like that's what I think how it's supposed to.
I think that's what the reality is. Although it's not necessarily said, I share with people that I was born on the same day that my dad buried his mom.
Wow.
He left the cemetery and came to the hospital. Wow. I was born. And as I was growing up, because my grandmother was from Cuba, so I have that kind of stuff.
I didn't know. So we have very similar, because my father's Jamaican and my mother's Panamanian, and so it's the Panamanian side I grew up with. So we have very. I didn't realize we had such close. Oh, this book must have really resonated.
My father, as I was growing up, even when I was really little, I would do something. He goes, "Okay, Salvarita." He would call me his mother by his
Mother.
mother's name. He was like, "Yeah, you really got the spirit of Salvarita. You really got your grandmother's spirit." So that's why I say that these things always coexisted together.
Right.
It's just how they were spoken about or not spoken about, you know? So it was really like I was really intrigued by all the Panamanian stuff. I was just like, okay, all right, this is so interesting. And being able to tell the story with respect to the different cultures and the understanding. So it's not like us and them or that kind of behavior. So I really enjoyed that. You did a really respectful job in that way.
Thank you. I really believe truly. I don't really think there are right or wrong ways to find your path to connect with that higher power. I'm truly agnostic in the sense of like I see value in what people in people's the variety of spiritual practices that people choose, and so I just felt like my writing should reflect that belief. I also wanted, though, to be clear that it still is its own thing. Like I wanted to showcase certain belief systems in a way that was respectful and clearly connected to the real world. But then also just in terms of the world building that I created, I knew it had to be sort of have its own rules because I'm not a spiritual practitioner, for instance, within Santeria or
Right.
that effect. And I was like, well, I have no right then to sort of present certain ideas as real or this what you're reading here is the legitimate way of interpreting it.
Right.
No, I'm not. I have no right to present that information, and I don't have the knowledge base. And so Fonzie, and I'll mention Fonzie and his cousin Hiselda, and I'll throw out that there's a character named Hiselda who is also very important in the book. They belong to an order called, and Fonzie's mother, Madrina, they belong to an order called the Guardians, and the Guardians are connected. Their power stem from Orishas and also from the manipulating the energy of the realm where ghosts reside. That's all made up. I just created that because I was like, what the story needs, and this is what would make the most sense. And this is these are the rules that as the story was coming to me and spoke to me, these are the rules that I think need to be in place. So it's its own system. It's not, I've been.
Yeah, you're not borrowing from someone else's.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I looked, within certain real world communities and said, okay, I'm going to take this verbatim and make it. I did. It's its own thing.
No, I never really felt that that's what it was. I always felt that this was like a made up story. We're respecting the mindset of people that our ancestors that had that knowledge or that skill set that interacted with the spiritual realm in that way. But no, it's like that part of it is one thing, but just the whole New York story, the whole fashion story and the whole life being lived, because the ghosts are a part of it, but there's a whole life being lived by the people. in this book?
So I think, and I haven't said this enough, and I'm going to make it my business to, is that the genre fusion of the book reflects, I think, the fusion of life, like what we really, because the overwhelming majority of us, regardless of, I think there are people who are more traditionalist, people who look to traditional spiritual beliefs, who might look to the continent for peace and to find a sense of self, and all good. But I would still argue for the vast majority of Black folks, we live a life of fusion. We live a life of having to balance the day-to-day thing of, okay, what, got to hold down the job, got to do my 9 to 5, or if you're a really, really ambitious professional person, then you know that really can take over, or having a family, having kids who might be just very, very American. You know, I just think the reality of it is that we have to do this process of figuring out how to combine all of these things in a way that often, quote unquote, mainstream culture doesn't really show us. It's something that we figure out on our own or in community with each other, you know, and with you know, being in groups or you know, communing with each other. You know, it's a process. And so, but I think this idea of a fusion of what might be the traditional with the contemporary, I don't think we speak enough about that as like our reality as Black folks. Like that's always been something we've had to process, juggle, and then come up with what we need to come up with. I would also argue that's why our culture is just so vibrant and unique, and it just sometimes goes, how'd they come up with that? It's because we're sitting there like,
exactly, because you know, it's almost like 100 years almost since what's his name, Adolfo Loos. He was the father of minimalists, right? That idea that I'll call it creative people that are artistic, people that have vision, have less intelligence. And then, so yeah, that's where the minimalist thing comes from, is just that you're not smart if you're trying to put too much ornamentation onto things. So I'm like, and then as I started seeing our culture adapt to that mindset, not understanding where that mindset originated from, you know, we started pushing away all of the different things that made us, you know, all of the creativity and the color and the ornamentation. For a few years, it was really like, as they would say in the West Indies, it was really vexing my spirit, you know.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny you bring this up, because the main character, Gwendolyn, as she's constructed her identity, you know, she's in the process of figuring things out. So her fashion sense is quite vibrant, but her style, how she keeps her place, it's a bit dry. It's not, and I can reveal Fonzie eventually gets to see her place, and he's horrified. Like, he's like, what? Where's like the you know, color and the vibrancy, and it's because she's been in the process of figuring out what she feels safe to express. So overwhelmingly for her, fashion has been like this this mode of expression, and then but then she's a little bit stuck in the sense of like her place has become, she's so particular that's become dry, and so she's still, for someone who's so put together and everything needs to be just so, in some ways she's still in process and certain things.
Yeah, and I thought about,
should be, and other things it's like suppressed, repressed.
and while I was reading it, and her place, and even James's place, I was just like, and coming out of a fashion background, I spent 40 years in the fashion industry. Fashion is all about controlling how people look and feel, right? And I think for me, which I am so happy that I was a part of the process when I was, because I was the only one, and I knew I would never look like they did. I knew I would never fit that mold perfectly. So I never tried, So because of that, I feel like I was always pretty much able to keep a lot of my identity and my colors and my patterns and these things, because the world that Gwendolyn is living in is telling her that, the things from her culture would not necessarily be acceptable or seen as sophisticated in the world in which she makes her living.
Absolutely. And she's struggling with that herself, like, because I do think she's internalized some things that aren't helpful, but it's also connected to what she's hiding and not feeling like she can be her full expansive self. So, in terms of having like this apartment where everything is like off-white and everything is just, and everything, it looks like, sort of like something from a lifestyle magazine, that would exactly be what you said, minimal, like, and is it really this question of is it really her? And I would argue she knows the answer, that it's not fully really her, but it's what she's done to feel safe and to create an environment for herself that sort of is like, okay, this is how I can exist in this world, in this industry, and be okay with myself. So yeah. So curious, because I'd forgotten that you had worked in fashion. Did I get it right?
Yeah. So you see that I brought into the conversation this, because I'm like, because it's the thing that, as I said, it really vexes my spirit still now. And because I do also have an interior decorating background, and the thing that I dislike about the modern interior decorating shows is, to me, it's like if they were giving out fine dining, Michelin award for fine dining, if that award was given to what I see in interior decorating, it would be the equivalent of somebody serving you boiled chicken with boiled potatoes and a green bean or a carrot or some colorful beet on the side. The flavor in interior decoration does not exist anymore, right? They have convinced you that all you need is a beige and one pop of color, and that's it. So as I'm reading and I'm listening to this book, and I'm like, you bought that, you vexed my spirit.
It's funny you say that, because that was something I used to my break from publishing was I worked in the performance industry for a little bit. I've modeled and done like acting and singing, dancing, and all of that jazz. I was a bit too all over the place, and I've said I wouldn't mind returning to modeling just for fun, but it would just be here and there, and it would just be very, very a particular type a thing. But I always observed, and I always was like, what am I seeing here? And then how can I then put this in the book? Some of it is slightly exaggerated, and a lot of it, I hope people realize I am winking. I'm being a bit satirical. I'm being a bit silly, but it is pretty much what I saw, in terms of just that dynamic. And also the main character, Gwendolyn, she comes from a place where she didn't have access to these things, that it's something that it felt like she would be her salvation. And then because of her past, she can't be a front and center person for these things, but she wants to be as close to it as possible. And so that's how she ends up being a publicist and brand manager for people who are fashion, arts and entertainment folks. So I wanted to put that in the mix, because I think I realized I do believe in that thing of the characters and the stories tell you who they are. And so once I realized who she was, and then I was like, okay, so I can incorporate these elements from this particular industry, and then how can I play with it? How can I, it not just be sort of, as you said before, just the same old, like how can I, talk, like there's one actor who she works with who he's horrible in in his private life, but he has a bit of a roguish charm, and he's fine, and he can he puts on a slight Jersey accent, even though he's just too pretend that he's still of the people, even though he technically speaks like perfect things in English, like he's. So I went into like him and a showrunner and how they're talking to each other, and it's all performance. Like, it's called, oh, you're such a feminist, you're so caring, and all that stuff. I was like, yeah. It's
but as I said, having come out of the fashion industry, and I remember before it was popular for everybody to look exactly the same. Like I was in the industry when uniqueness was more in line. You did not want to be wearing the exact same thing as someone else. And
that's what I remember. And that's when I remember being like, because that's when I came up as a kid. Like, oh my gosh. It would be exciting to watch.
Right. People like that would be
models. Yeah.
It's an insult to like have on the same thing as someone I remember in the 90s working for Macy Product Development when they had all the bridge lines and the couture within the store, and you would go up to somebody and say, "Oh, nice dress. Ralph Lauren, spring 2026." They wouldn't say, like, thank you.
Right.
It was like, nice dress. Yes, Ralph Lauren, spring 2026. It's not even out yet.
It was, I just remember. So I tell anyone, it's not, clearly that it's not a real like runway show, or I'm sure they had certain designers that they're profiling in this segment. But I will tell anyone sometimes how I would feel in certain parts of New York, the Emerald City scene in The Wiz, when you got to be seen green, and then and everyone's prancing around and doing. And I was like, it kind of felt a little like that. Like they took that from just what it was, like a certain type of grandness. You definitely tried to do your unique thing, but I just think also there was a sense of being alive. I think Iman once talked about like when the trends on the runway switched to like the models just looking like dead, like zombies just walking. And she was just like, and she was horrified. She was like, that's not what this is supposed to
Right.
supposed to be.
The creative spirit of it started to leave. So for me, as you could see, this book like tapped into a lot of different.
I'm like, wow, you are the target audience, Ellen.
It tapped into so much of my being as a person. The stories, I'm a real story girl, right? And I like stories. I don't really need all the sound effects and the big bangs and all of those different things. So I actually like listening to books because my mind visualizes it the way I want to see it, based on the words that are being said. It's stimulating to me. It's much more stimulating to me reading it or listening to it. And you just tapped into so much of, as you said, the immigrant population that kind of understands this story. And I don't even think it's just immigrants, because as you said, people that came up from the South, they have a lot of those same kind of things that happen in their family that they talk about, they don't talk about. But it's the whole New Yorker. It's
absolutely, and so I think a lot of people have been talking about, for obvious reasons, the connection the story has to Afro-Latinx communities and the Caribbean and certain types of traditions, but there's a significant African American component to the story as well. Like James, who is the protagonist, love interest is from the county, from the DMV area. And so as much as I could, I wanted to, so much of the book is like my way of paying tribute, homage to so many of the people experiences I grew up with. And so, there being, tons of African American folks who have long history in the U.S.
Right.
I just knew they had to be in the mix as well. And so, and that will always be kind of the sensibilities of my books. Like they'll always just have a cast that will be a mix of folks that reflect the diaspora as much as I can. So
right. You did an excellent job. I enjoyed it.
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed reading. I always enjoy learning something new. And so there was learnings in the book, and there was just an understanding, just a way of being entertained, but also feeling like, you know what? I have now broadened my understanding of something, so I enjoyed that part.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience as we're wrapping up?
I would just say, everyone, my novel is called The Ghosts of Gwendolyn Montgomery. It's my solo debut, calling it urban fantasy glam horror. You can see it.
Glam horror. I like
glam horror. Yeah, which we're calling it. And folks can find me on social. Just look up Clarence A. Haynes. I'm particularly very active on Instagram, but I'm on a variety of channels. And reach out. I hope if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Reader engagement is really important to me, and I like to form communities around books. So happy to engage, and let me know what you think. It's such a pleasure.
I might take you up on something. I'm trying to do something with my Substack. We'll talk.
We will talk. Alice, thank you so much for having me. This is always a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. My pleasure. I would like to say thank you to author Clarence Haynes for joining us today to discuss his new book, The Ghost of Gwendolyn Montgomery. please go out and pick up a copy. This has been Read This, Author's Corner. I am your host, Alice Maria. Keep reading, keep growing, and stay empowered.